Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Quarter Life Questions. My name is Gino. If this is your first time here, this is Sam and Gino's channel. We talk about loads of different things, and this short podcast, is about some things I think about throughout the week, throughout the month, or whatever, and I discuss it with you guys. And I've been getting loads of feedback, mainly from people actually my own age, with positive feedback that a lot of the things I talk about they've thought about too. So it's good to do that, and I'm going to keep going with it and see where we go. So the first thing I was thinking about at the moment, I'm a car salesman. If you haven't seen some of the videos, I've covered that, and on TikTok I'm covering it a bit too. But I'm a car salesman, and at the moment things are going good. We're quite busy, getting loads of sales, selling more cars than I usually would. The deals are good, everything's going well. And but car sales isn't always that, and some people say that sales is like champagne and razor blades. It's either really, really good or it's really, really shit. And I just wanted to touch on that a bit. So basically, there's this terrible video I've seen. It's not terrible, it's just a cringy video I've seen on TikTok and stuff like that. And it's Tom Hanks and Adam Sandler and all these guys at the table. And Tom Hanks gives a speech about his favorite saying. And his favorite saying is, "This too shall pass." But it's actually very, very relevant. And if you take away all the cringiness and actors and American side of it, it's very important to think about, because you need to keep yourself grounded in all walks of life and in all different positions. So firstly, for example, I'm going to talk about sales just because that's where I can relate it to. Sometimes you're shit hot, sometimes you're the best, sometimes you're wiping the floor with everyone else. You literally can't not do a deal, and you need to keep in mind, okay, this will pass eventually. I'm not always going to be on form, I'm not always going to be this good, it's not always going to be that busy. But on the flip side of that, you need to remember as well, when things are really bad and things are quiet and you're not getting any sales and you're sitting there and there's no customers, or you're fumbling all the leads that come your way, you have to remember too that will also pass. And remember that you can be good, and sometimes different things can affect it. And this is something that's really, really important, because it will keep you sane. For example, if you train jiu-jitsu as well, there's some weeks, some days you're very good and some days you're bad, and you can't think you're unbelievable every time you're good, and you can't just think you're useless every time you're bad. You need to remember that this too shall pass. And I just thought, sometimes you need to watch these videos and you have to take aside all the kind of cringiness of it and think about really what they're talking about. And it's actually a really, really good one to go by. And just to relate it to more things, sometimes when you're sad, if you're a bit depressed, you need to remember that this will pass onwards. It's just like when the weather's shit. Like right now, the weather is glorious. I'm in my parents' garden. I said I'd record here. It's just really, really nice day, really nice weather. The sun's shining, and I just thought it'd be a nice place to record today. Hopefully the sound works out well. But then you have to remember, then the weather, you need to enjoy it when it's there, because this will pass, and then soon it will be raining, and then that will pass, and it'll be sunny again. And it's just an important thing to think about. And obviously, it's just not to let yourself get down on anything if anything's going too badly, or also not to let yourself get carried away with yourself if things are going well. Obviously, use your momentum, and momentum is great, and sometimes that's exactly what you need to keep on pushing further. But you just need to remind yourself, not everything is always going to be so good, and then also it's not always going to be so bad. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about was, I was listening to a podcast, and they were discussing the pessimist versus the optimist, and the reason why so many people are so pessimistic. And basically what they discussed, and I thought this was cool, I don't know how true it is, but they discussed the gene pool has basically eventually started to wean out all the optimists, because they've all died. So basically, years and years ago, the optimists would have ate the fruit that ended up being poisonous, or they would have petted the bear that ended up eating them, or they would have thought they could swim across the river and ended up drowning in the river, or whatever it might be over the years. And then obviously the gene pool filters down into everybody, and eventually then you're left with just a bunch of pessimists. No, I'm not saying everyone's a pessimist, but there is definitely far more pessimistic people than optimistic people. Now, I consider myself, I kind of think I'm a balance of both, so obviously it's different. But some people are extremely optimistic, and it's great, and it is a good way to be. But obviously avoiding death, but years ago it was different. But I just thought that was a funny topic that I never really thought about before, how basically just the optimists have all been gotten rid of because they were trying stuff, and then it ended up being really dangerous stuff that we know now not to do. Like, not to pet the bear, or not to swim across the big river you can't swim across, or whatever it might be, climb the mountain you're not supposed to climb. And I just thought it was a funny thought, and I just wrote it down in my notes to not really discuss. There's not much to discuss, but I definitely think it's true. I don't know if there's much proof behind it, but it seems like something that's true. Sunk cost fallacy. James Smith always talks about this. He's had it in, I think, more than one of his books, and I was listening to him on a podcast during the week, and he spoke about this again. So it's the sunk cost fallacy, which is basically the idea that it's harder to give up something the more time you put into it. This can be relationships, this can be a job, this can be a business, this can be a project, this can be pretty much anything that you put a lot of dedication into. And it's like I've discussed this on previous episodes. It's like you're beating a dead horse or whatever. Like if something's not working, it's just not working. You need to move on from it. But it can be so difficult to move on from something when you put all these years. Some people have put 20 years into relationships that have to end, or into businesses that have to end, or into just jobs that have to come to an end. And it's important not to let yourself get beat down on the amount of time you put in on something that if it's not working. And you see so many people in unhappy marriages and unhappy relationships, and you're like, why are you with this person? It's like, oh, I've been with them for 4 years, we have a house, we have a dog, we have whatever. And it can be quite a dangerous mindset to have about things, because you'll find life is short. You only get at maximum 10 decades to live, and if you spend 10 years with someone, that's a tenth of your life. And then 2/10 of your life are growing up. You're not an adult for the first 2/10 of your life, so then you've got 3/10 of your life gone. And speaking about pessimistic, but anyway, I'm not going to get into that kind of dark stuff. But it's basically just the sunk cost fallacy. Think about what you're putting so much time into, and if it's really worth it, or if you really like it, or if you're just doing it because you have been doing it and it's what you know and it's what you think is the right thing to do. And I think relationships are the easiest to relate it to, because people do grow up, especially when you're young and you're our age. People change, people grow apart, people want different things. Some people want kids when they're 26, and then if your partner wants kids when she's 26 and you're 26 and you want to go travel the world and go on a music festival tour or I don't know what it is. I'm just making shit up here, but it's just something that's worth thinking about. You don't need to put all this time into something just because you have been. You don't need to continue to do so. That's the sunk cost fallacy. Communication, another thing I wanted to talk about, and this is another thing I can relate back to work, and it's just communication in every aspect is so important. And if your communication skills are poor, you need to work on them. You need to figure them out. You need to figure out how to tell someone exactly what's going on. If you're working with them, exactly what's going on, exactly what you need done or what you're trying to do, exactly when you're going to be somewhere, and then stick to your word. Like if you book an appointment to be somewhere, be there or cancel it. Communicate, and this in every walk of life. Don't ever assume anyone knows what you're thinking. No one knows what's going on in your brain, only you. So speak clearly. Explain exactly what's going on to people. If you're in work, for example, we liaison a lot with our workshop when we're selling cars, and tell them when the car's going out. Tell them, if you spot something's wrong with the car, let them know so they don't have to try to figure it out themselves. They might miss it and then it's not fixed because you didn't communicate properly. Communicate with customers, explain to them exactly what's going on. Communicate with your business partners, with your actual partners. You see a lot of people kind of in relationships where they end up in these big huge fights because they could have sworn that for example, I go to the pub every Thursday. How does she not know I was going to the pub this Thursday? But does she know you go to the pub every Thursday? How new is this relationship? Was there a point that you always go to the pub every Thursday that she should know? Don't just assume she knows exactly what's going on in your life, or he knows exactly what's going on in your life. Learn to communicate with everyone, and the communication is key. And sometimes you can seem quite blunt, but bluntness is better than confusion. So if you're straight with someone, no, that doesn't work. I don't like this. I need this. I want to do this. This has to be done this way. Whatever it is, in whatever patch you're in, communicate clearly, communicate effectively, and it will make your life a whole lot easier. And practice communication. It's just so important. And people are afraid of hurting people's feelings and all this, but I can tell you, people's feelings are going to be a lot more hurt if they have to fall behind on something you haven't communicated correctly, or you basically then they think you're lying about, or whatever it is, just because you haven't told them exactly how it is in your brain and how you want to express what you're going to say. So communication, if you're a young adult and there's a few of you watching this, or even if you're an older person, you haven't figured it out, read a book, watch something, figure out. So it's actually just, sometimes I find it simple just to be blunt and seem like a prick and explain, look, I'm not being a dickhead, but I need this, and it's communicated so clearly. If you're getting into a new relationship, communicate what you want to do. Communicate like, okay, I am looking for a long-term relationship, and then the other person says, okay, well, I am not. Well, okay, we're at an impasse then, we need to figure this out. Or you're going into a job, I am expecting to do this kind of work, and then your boss says, okay, well, I actually need you to do this kind of work, and then you can decide whether that's what you want to do. Communication is so important. It will stop so many issues and so many problems going forward into the future in whatever situation you're in. Two more small topics before we go on to kind of questions and topics sent in from some of the listeners. So getting angry about things on the internet, just stop. Don't. Like I put up a video on TikTok yesterday, so today's Wednesday. Tuesday, put up a video on TikTok, 15 seconds, about how we just don't really like cash in the car industry, and it can be kind of annoying and difficult to deal with, and there's money laundering that needs to go, like paperwork that needs to be done, and people expect massive discounts, more discounts than the profit we'd have in a car, just because they're paying in cash, which is something we don't even want. It's like an old-fashioned thing. Anyway, I won't get into it, but you can check out my TikTok page, just Gino Forte, if you want to watch the video. But I ended up, it's like, I don't know, it had like 14,000 views or something as of now, and it had about 70 plus comments of people so angry, people calling me names, people cursing at me, people saying you mustn't be in sales, people saying you're not the boss, that's why you don't want cash, all these kind of things. And like, whatever it was, cash is king, all this stuff. But the amount of people that were genuinely triggered over a small comment I said on TikTok was just bizarre. Now, don't get me wrong, the comments were great, it pushed out the video, got more views, but if you're someone that's getting pissed off over something that someone else says on the internet, the only time I can let it slide is if you're into like some sort of sport, if you're like a big football fan, or you're a fan of some UFC fighter and you're passionate about it and you just want to get into it on the internet, and that's kind of your thing on Twitter or whatever, that's fine. It's more of a debate. But if you're just furious with someone over their opinion on something as trivial as whether cash has any relevance to the car industry, and you want to call them names and all this stuff, just get over yourself. You're not busy enough, you don't have enough going on, you haven't figured out exactly what you need to be passionate about. If that kind of stuff pisses you off and you feel the need to comment on TikTok, and TikTok is a cesspit, I've said it before, it's full of people with anonymous names, because most people don't post on TikTok when they have TikTok accounts, so their names are just literally anything. Their names can just sometimes be user 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So they have anonymity. They're anonymous. I completely butchered that. They're anonymous, and they can get away with saying whatever they want, and it's fine. Like it doesn't upset me. When you put yourself on the internet, you need to assume that people are gonna not like what you say and comment things about you. But if you're one of them people that are doing it on anyone's videos, just grow up. Just positive comments are fine. If you're into commenting on stuff, that's fine. But like, if you're letting things genuinely upset you that someone else said on TikTok, because some people make TikTok specifically to upset other people to get more views and get comments. So if you're one of these people that's triggered by this, you need to find a hobby, figure out something to care about, figure out something that will keep you busier, because it's just not enough. I want to also talk about gathering loads of junk over the years, especially now. So I'm 26 next month, and I'm doing a few different things at the moment, trying to plan a few different things. And one of the things I've done is I've just been trying to get rid of some of my stuff. Oh my god, the amount of stuff. I had 2 or 3 black bin bags of clothes that I've donated over the last few days. Some of it I've done on Depop, some of it is just like too much to do on Depop. Just packed it all into bags and donated, which I thought was a charity bin down in Clonmel, but it turns out it's actually a Tipperary County Council bin, which isn't ideal. I thought it was charity, I tried. Anyway, just like get that across. As you're getting older, spot things you're not using, get rid of it sooner. There's no need to have loads and loads of stuff. And one thing they don't tell you when you're younger is the amount you're going to move houses. I've moved houses more times. So I spent the first 17 years of my life in one house. I've probably lived in 10 plus different houses, and then in the next 10 years, or the next 8 years, 17 to 25, I've literally probably lived in 10 different places. And when you used to lug all this stuff from house to house, every time I've moved, I've gotten rid of stuff. But I still just pick up more and more stuff. So if you're someone that buys a lot of stuff that you don't need, stop, for your own good. If you're someone that buys a lot of clothes that you don't need, try replace the clothes, try sell them on Depop, try donate them, do something with them. Just try and not hold on to so much stuff, because it's honestly such a pain. And as I said in my first video, Depop's great. I've sold nearly like 50 items on Depop. You know, I sell them for good prices, and then usually it seems like guys that are younger than me buying the stuff, so it's great to see. Just great for them, you know, they get some nice quality stuff. I never really overwear anything, so they're getting good quality, nice gear, and they're getting them cheap, and it's great. And they often text me like, oh, I'm so sick that I got this, you know, these pair of runners or these tops or whatever for this price, and it's cool. So, you know, either donate it, do Depop, but just keep an eye on the amount of junk you're gathering over your life, because eventually you're just going to have to get rid of it all, and you're better off just keep on top of it. So guys, I'm just going to look at some things now. We didn't get a whole lot in. Well, we did. We got 4 or 5 things in. One of them I'm not going to discuss until a later date. One of the questions I spoke to the guy who sent the question in. It's just a topic I don't want to discuss yet, but I will discuss maybe in a month or so. But I do have there was other ones that came in. So this was actually just to slag me, but it's actually something worth talking about. A friend of mine sent this in. He goes, how does it feel to have an Italian name and not be able to speak the language? Terrible. So if any of you don't know, my name is Gino Forte. I'm born and raised in Ireland, and my dad is an Italian. So my grandparents were Italian, his obviously siblings are Italian, blah blah. And I never learned Italian, and I hate it, and I regret it, and I get caught out quite often. I meet people, they hear my name, and then they start speaking Italian to me, or you go on holidays to Italy and they expect you to speak Italian, or more often than not, or more recently, I've met Italian girls out, and I like Italian girls, and when you meet them and you say your name is Gino, then they're like, oh, and then they start speaking Italian, and you're like, ugh. So I've never learned. I'm super lazy. I've always been lazy with languages, even in school. But one of my biggest regrets, and I don't have a huge amount of regrets in life, but one of my biggest regrets in life, over the years when I was younger, my dad used to offer me every summer to go live in Italy. And he'd say to me, Joe, he had like a cousin who had 2 daughters around my age, well, it still obviously exists, who has 2 daughters around my age, and they did offer to take me in for the whole summer, so I could move to Italy, live in the south of Italy for the whole summer. But stupid little Gino was like, no, I want to stay here, my friends are here, and I'd just stay in Clonmel, doing nothing all through like all my teenage years. I got offered this pretty much every year, as long as I can remember, as far back as I can remember, and every time I'd reject it. But I would be fluent in Italian. If you spend 3 months of the year in Italy, you will learn a lot of Italian, because these people I was going to spoke very, very minimal English, only Italian. So I'd have had no choice. You would have learned all conversational Italian, which is obviously the most important to know a conversational language. And that is simply my biggest regret in life, is not bothering to learn it, not taking the opportunities. I feel like I could still learn it. Obviously people are going to say that to me now, and I know I'd love to, and I've tried Duolingo, and I'm just lazy. But if you're over there stuck in it, you've no choice. So yes, it feels terrible to be to have Italian heritage, an Italian name, and to go on about being Italian and not be able to speak Italian. So thank you for that one, Brendan. I'm going to name you, if you hurt my feelings. But anyway, no, it is a serious topic, and if you're a young person and you get these opportunities to go off to different countries, your friends aren't going to disappear, and you're not going to miss anything not being in Ireland for the summer. You'll get better weather, you'll get new opportunities, and you get to learn an amazing language wherever you go, Spain, France, Germany, whatever it is. So that is my biggest and pretty much only regret in life, is not taking the opportunities to learn Italian when they were giving it to me, not taking the opportunities to spend my summers in Italy when I was younger, and just being afraid of missing out, FOMO of nothing, especially when all you're going to be doing is hanging around the place anyway for the whole summer. So yeah, so that was just, even though it was meant to be slagging me, Brendan, it was I feel like that was something valuable that I learned, and I'll often tell people about it. Another question: what are the best podcasts of people to watch to get a better understanding of business? It completely depends on what you're doing. I know this guy, what he does for work, what his business is, and I can't recommend someone in that line really, but you don't need to know someone in that line. You just need to find people that speak about, that you can relate to, and it's not so much that they'll teach you about business, it's that you're going to actually listen to them, because that's sometimes the hardest thing to do. Off the bat, people I like: James Smith, George Heaton. So James Smith, personal trainer, writes books, look him up. George Heaton, he is the owner and creative director, I believe, of Represent clothing brand, the one I'm wearing right now. He's from Manchester, absolutely sick, great page. Mark Tilbury, he's an older gentleman. He runs like one of the biggest kind of personal finance pages on YouTube, and he has a brilliant podcast called Strike It Big with his son and another guy. So Mark Tilbury's own page, and then Strike It Big for podcasts. I also quite like Naval Ravikant. If you haven't read his book, read it, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. He's one of the first founders of Twitter, Uber, early founders of Twitter, Uber, and other things. He's really, really good, really smart guy. So Naval, you can listen to Rob Moore. He's good. He's from the UK. You could they would kind of be my main ones I like. I feel like I'm definitely missing ones, but yeah, George Heaton, James Smith, Mark Tilbury, Strike It Big podcast, Naval Ravikant. That's 5 anyway, but like just go from there. You'll find other people that he'll talk about, that Tim Ferriss is another one, but you'll find ones that they talk about and you'll be able to follow on through there. But that's where I'd start, and they're my personal favorites anyway when it comes to that kind of stuff. And yeah, so that was the gist of all the questions, all the answers. So again, that last one goes back to like watching what content you're taking in and making sure you're taking in all the right good stuff, and making sure you're acting. There's no point just watching and taking in all this information if you're not acting on it. So it's super important to act on what you do. Don't just sit around watching YouTube videos all day. Try your best, try to figure out your niche, try to figure out what you like, and figure out people you're actually going to listen to. If they put up a half an hour or an hour YouTube video, you're actually going to sit there and listen to them, because that's super important to find. I struggled with Jordan Peterson. Obviously, like one of the huge name. I'm sure everyone here has heard of him, in either good or bad. It depends on your opinions and things. And I've wanted to listen to him, but I just can't, because his voice goes through me. And I'm sure he's got says things I agree with, and he's got good ideas. But if I can't listen to someone, I can't commit to it, and I'll learn nothing, because I can't put in the time to them. So that's where I am with that. Find people you can listen to, and make sure obviously they're not full of shit. There's some names I would recommend. I really like them. And yeah. There we go, guys. That's episode 6. That's 6 weeks of doing this now. The views have been kind of consistent, but the feedback has been what's actually really keeping me doing this. I've had huge feedback. I really appreciate every time someone messages me. I've got text messages, I've met people on the street, I've got Instagram messages just from people, and it's usually people I wouldn't expect either. So if you're any of those people that have spoken to me about it, you'll know who you are. I really, really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. And yeah, so hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. All them things help us massively. If you've gotten this far, well done, because the retention is very difficult to keep for 22 minutes. So thank you all so much, guys. Stay safe, have a great day. Work on all these things I talk about. Keep yourself motivated, not motivated, keep yourself disciplined. And yeah, talk to you soon. See you in episode 7. Cheers.